Michael Carter had always believed that hard work, honesty, and respecting the rules were enough to enjoy a peaceful life in a quiet suburban neighborhood. For years, that belief never let him down. One calm Saturday morning, he sat on the porch of his red brick home, drinking coffee as the sun slowly rose. The streets were quiet, birds chirped in the distance, and everything felt completely normal. Across the street, though, someone was paying close attention. Linda Parker, the HOA president, stood beside her mailbox with her phone raised, taking pictures of Michael's property. She carefully looked over every detail. It wasn't the first time she had done this, and Michael had started noticing how often she seemed interested in his home. Over the past few months, Linda had complained about nearly everything connected to Michael's property. One week, she objected to his pickup truck in the driveway. The next, she criticized the flowers near the sidewalk. She even filed a complaint about the American flag hanging beside his garage. No matter what Michael changed, Linda always managed to find another issue. Soon, violation letters became routine. Almost every week, another envelope showed up in the mailbox. Many of the complaints didn't match the HOA rules, while others made little sense at all. Michael often wondered if Linda was deliberately targeting him, but instead of arguing, he handled every complaint calmly and professionally. His wife, Sarah Carter, always told him not to let it bother him. Because of her demanding job, she rarely got involved with neighborhood matters. She was well known throughout the county for her leadership, professionalism, and dedication, but since she left home before sunrise each morning, most neighbors rarely saw her. As time passed, Linda began making assumptions about the Carter family without really knowing them. Those assumptions were about to put her in a situation she never expected. At the next HOA board meeting, Linda arrived carrying a stack of photos and complaint letters. She claimed Michael had ignored community standards and refused to cooperate with the HOA. A few board members questioned her accusations, but Linda insisted immediate action was necessary. She left the meeting convinced she had gained enough support. What no one else knew was that she had already decided to go beyond normal HOA procedures. A few days later, Linda sat in her home office, making several phone calls. She spoke confidently, describing Michael as a serious problem for the neighborhood. With every conversation, she became more certain that she was finally going to teach him a lesson. Meanwhile, Michael spent the afternoon in his garage organizing tools and working on a few projects around the house. He had no idea Linda was planning anything unusual. As far as he was concerned, the worst that could happen was another violation notice. Then he heard several engines outside. A group of vehicles slowly pulled into his driveway. Michael stepped out of the garage and watched as several HOA officers climbed out. Their serious expressions immediately told him this wasn't an ordinary visit. A loud knock soon echoed through the house. Michael opened the front door and found 3 HOA officers standing there with paperwork in hand. One officer handed him a document and immediately requested access to the property. Remaining calm, Michael asked what authority allowed them to make such a request. The explanation was unclear. Instead of answering directly, the officers simply repeated their instructions without offering any real explanation. As Michael listened, he glanced toward the sidewalk. Linda stood there with her arms folded and a confident smile across her face. She looked completely convinced that everything was unfolding exactly as she had planned. Michael continued asking questions. Which HOA rule had he supposedly broken? What evidence supported the accusations? Why hadn't the normal procedures been followed? The officers exchanged uneasy looks. None of them seemed eager to answer. Before anyone finally spoke, the front door opened wider behind Michael. Sarah stepped onto the front porch, wearing her official sheriff's uniform. The moment the HOA officers saw her, everything changed. Their confident expressions disappeared. A few of them froze, and one even took a small step back. They instantly recognized the county sheriff standing before them. Sarah calmly looked at the group and asked one simple question. Who approved this visit? Silence filled the driveway. No one answered. Linda's smile faded almost immediately. She realized this situation was no longer under her control. For the first time, she looked genuinely concerned. Sarah politely asked to see the paperwork. She examined each page carefully, remaining calm and professional throughout. As she continued reading, her expression became more serious. Missing information, procedural errors, and unsupported claims quickly caught her attention. The officers listened quietly while she pointed out each problem. It soon became clear that several important mistakes had been made. After a brief pause, one officer admitted they had relied mostly on the information Linda had provided. They had not independently verified the complaints before coming to Michael's home. Sarah nodded and continued reviewing the documents. Linda tried to defend herself, insisting she was only protecting the neighborhood and enforcing HOA rules. But every explanation she gave raised even more questions. None of her claims were backed by solid evidence. By now, neighbors had started gathering outside after noticing the commotion. People watched from their driveways, sidewalks, and front yards as word quickly spread through the community. As residents began talking, several shared similar experiences with Linda. Some described receiving questionable violation notices. Others recalled being pressured over issues that didn't seem to violate any HOA rule at all. A clear pattern was beginning to emerge. Sarah listened while reviewing the remaining paperwork. Every new detail supported the same conclusion. The situation was far different from what Linda had claimed. The HOA officers exchanged nervous glances. None of them expected to be explaining their actions to the county sheriff. The confidence they arrived with had completely vanished. Linda continued arguing, but the crowd's attitude had changed. Neighbors who had stayed quiet for months were now speaking openly. Some challenged her accusations, while others questioned decisions she had made as HOA president. Michael remained calm the entire time. He never raised his voice or argued. Sarah's professionalism, along with the growing evidence, was already speaking louder than anything he could have said. As more neighbors joined the conversation, people compared their experiences and realized many of them had faced similar treatment. Not long afterward, several HOA board members arrived after hearing different versions of what had happened. Expecting a routine neighborhood dispute, they instead found a street filled with concerned residents, unanswered questions, and growing doubts about Linda's leadership. Sarah calmly explained the situation to the HOA board members, showing them the paperwork and pointing out every missing detail, procedural mistake, and unsupported claim. The board carefully reviewed each document while listening to her explanation. Nearby, Linda stood in silence. The confidence she had shown earlier was gone. Even board members who had usually supported her now looked uncertain about defending her actions. After reviewing everything, the HOA officers apologized to Michael and Sarah. They admitted mistakes had been made and promised the matter would be properly investigated. Shortly afterward, they returned to their vehicles and left. As the tension faded, several neighbors walked over to Michael and Sarah. Many thanked them for handling the situation calmly and respectfully. Others began sharing stories of their own, describing similar complaints and unnecessary pressure they had experienced from the HOA over the years. Realizing the community had lost trust in its leadership, the HOA board announced an emergency meeting. They agreed that residents deserved answers and that the growing concerns needed to be addressed. A few days later, the community center was packed. Every seat was taken, and many residents stood along the walls waiting for the meeting to begin. The atmosphere was serious, but everyone remained respectful. One by one, homeowners shared their experiences. Some spoke about violation notices they believed were unfair. Others described feeling singled out over minor issues, while similar situations elsewhere were ignored. As more people spoke, the similarities between their stories became impossible to overlook. Linda sat quietly throughout the meeting. The confidence she once carried had completely disappeared. With each new testimony, it became harder to dismiss the concerns raised by the community. The board carefully reviewed months of complaints, emails, meeting records, and official documents, comparing each one with the statements made by residents. Throughout the discussion, Michael and Sarah remained calm. They answered questions when asked and focused only on the facts instead of emotions. After several hours, the board chairman finally stood. The room fell completely silent. Everyone waited as he prepared to announce the board's decision. The board chairman finally announced the decision. After reviewing the evidence and listening to the residents, the board confirmed that many of the concerns raised by the community were valid. They announced new procedures to improve transparency, fairness, and accountability within the HOA. A sense of relief spread through the room. For the first time in a long while, residents felt that their voices had finally been heard. After the meeting ended, neighbors gathered outside the community center, discussing what had happened and what changes would come next. The atmosphere felt different. People were hopeful that the neighborhood could finally move forward. Michael and Sarah walked toward their vehicle as the sun began setting. The stress from the past week was slowly disappearing. They knew future problems could happen again, but they also knew the truth had finally come out. Over the following weeks, the neighborhood slowly returned to normal. Families spent more time outside. Children played in front yards, and neighbors started talking with each other again. The tension that had existed for months gradually faded away. The situation taught everyone an important lesson. Authority must always be used responsibly, and assumptions without facts can create serious problems. A strong community depends on respect, honesty, fairness, and accountability. What started as an attempt to pressure one homeowner ended in a completely different way than Linda expected. In the end, facts mattered more than accusations, and integrity proved stronger than intimidation. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to like the video, subscribe to HOA Stories, and turn on notifications for more HOA stories. And before you leave, tell us in the comments, where are you watching from today?